My name is Thembi Kgatlana and I am from Mohlakeng. I started playing football when I was 8 years old, and to this day I still think it's the craziest idea of why I started. But it was just a conversation between me and my boyfriends at school, and they were talking about how training was and they were loving it, and I thought I also want to be a part of this, and that's how I started playing football. I started playing with boys because back then football was like a male dominant sport in South Africa, and a couple of years later there were like some other girls that also came to play with us. My family didn't receive this well. I think especially my mother. My father used to play football, so he was like, he likes the idea but not so much. But I can understand because back then they were worried about my safety. I was the only girl when I started playing with boys in the outskirts of the community, so they really didn't accept that, and it was difficult. It took me maybe about 6 to 7 years from me starting football to convince them to come to my first match. It was crazy, but I'm glad they supported me. I played for Pama Ladies. It comes from Mohlakeng. It used to exist, and it came from Mohlakeng, and I also played with Posha Modise back then. But before it went to Sasol, they played in the Vodacom League. So I also played there. I was still very young and knew nothing about football. And from there, the Vodacom League was taken away and we were introduced to the Sasol League, and that's how I started playing for Sasol League. And I went to a couple of teams as well. I went to Lusaka FC from Randfontein, and I also played as registered under TUT, but I never got to play. The best, I think, is qualifying for the playoffs, because then you get to meet the best of the best from the 9 provinces to come together, and then there you see actually who's the best. And it was my first time after so many years of trying to go to the playoffs, and eventually I did with UWC, and it was an amazing experience. I was playing for Sasol League, and I never thought I would make it to the pro leagues, but I knew that they existed. And Coach Verapo, who used to coach Banyana, gave me a call one day and said, "Hey man, I've been appointed to be a coach in USA, do you want to come?" And I thought, what? Of course I'm coming. I can't say no. And it was a great opportunity for me, and that's how I started my football career. It was my first professional contract under Coach Verapo, as I said. It was different because of the time zones, and before I could settle into the club, I had to fix my visa, and I traveled back and forth the US, Doha, like 3 times, and it took me about 2.5 months to adjust in the time zones for me to be there. So I was like, feel like I was late. It was the rest of the team, and it was Thembi, It took me that long, and culture shock wise, for me not so much, because I was more focused on how am I going to step up and get to the level of the team. So I was more focused on what I was going to do there than worrying about a lot of things. But also because they spoke English, it made things easier. If I started my professional career in another country with a different language, I don't think I'd be here today. Maintaining being at the top is not easy. There's lots of sacrifices, and I think along the way I had to look at how I want my life to turn out. And it started with making the first decision of going to the Rio Olympics. I had to pause my studies, and you have to understand that now women's football is growing in the whole world. There's lots of opportunities, and I'm not saying people should not go to school, but if you really want to pursue being a professional footballer and there is an opportunity for you to go there, I would say go for it, because school will always be there. But if there's no opportunity, go to school, because there's nothing else you can do. And being professional, I think I had to learn at that age that if I'm gonna cut my studies and I say I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna go back. We have a lot of people saying, "Oh, I'm taking a gap year." After taking a gap year, they think, "No, I still don't wanna go to school." But I mean, I had made promises to my parents that I wanna play football and I also wanna go to school. But then always football had friction with what I was doing in terms of my school. I took a second gap year when I signed my professional contract, and unfortunately I couldn't finish my degree because being a professional required so much for me. I mean, moving from continent to continent with different time zones and having to study is not easy, and I think that's the choice I had to make, and that's why I'm giving everything that I have to football. If I had to advise someone who comes almost from the same background as me. The two things I would say is you have to be disciplined, because it's not easy to always be at the top, to go to train, to eat well, to sleep on time, because you also have an influence from your friends. So you have to be disciplined about what you're doing. And the second thing would be to enjoy, because you can't say you want to be a footballer and you don't enjoy. You have to enjoy what you're doing. You have to love what you're doing with all of your heart. And even if it's not football, I mean, even if it's your 9-to-5 job, if you don't love it, you won't enjoy it, and it's going to be a problem for you. But if you really enjoy it and it's going to help you to get to where you are, I think for me that's key. One story I think was me winning Africa Player of the Year. That's crazy. Let me break it down for you. We have 16 teams in every province in South Africa playing Sasol League, and then you have the whole country, and then you have the COSAFA region, and then you have SECAF, and then you have all other regions, and then you have players from those countries playing everywhere else in the world, and one person is chosen to be the best. It's not easy, but for me it's one defining moment that I thought, if I could be the best that I can, if I could be awarded this award of being the best player in Africa, there's more to life than that. Because think of all the other girls that want to win, that are waking up every day to realize their dreams, to become the best in Africa. Not an easy job. So I knew that I was in the right direction in terms of inspiring myself and telling a different story of how possible it is to make it.